Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, I want to respond to, I've received like a few comments talking about, like when I did those videos um, about the angels sounding their trumps and the calamities that happened afterward. I had a few people talk about how Chernobyl and also Fukushima could be um, like a fulfillment of those prophecies. So I wanted to like look into it closer, and I found a few things. So actually a few pretty interesting things. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you end up liking it, hit the notification bell, and leave your comments. So so basically, first I wanted to look at Revelation 8 verses 10 and 11, where it says, "The third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter." Now, there's a footnote here for the word fell. There fell a great star. So when you click on fell, it takes you to Isaiah 14:12, and that says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations?" So I don't know if this is meant to be a clue that this particular angel sounding his trump, maybe this isn't a literal thing where the waters become poisoned, and because wormwood, it's a herb, and it's like a really bitter herb. um so you could think of it as like poisoning, you could think of it as radiation, whatever. In like a literal sense, if like waters were literally like poisoned or became deadly. Or you can look at this in a spiritual sense, or maybe you can look at it in both. Like, I don't know. I can't say for sure. All I can say is that those who created the footnotes, they decided to uh, give this footnote for this right here, a star falling. So I don't know. So let's just go on. I'll show you what else I came across. Um, I also wanted to bring up Revelation chapter 9, which is right after what we were reading. It says here, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. And to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, and as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power." Now, for this one, so in other words, we have the third angel, which was a star falling from heaven. We have the fifth angel, which is after he blows his trumpet, a star falling from heaven. The first one had to do with wormwood and the waters being poisoned. With this one, it's a bottomless pit that uh, opens up. Okay. Now, there's some footnotes here. The first one is for and this one actually brings up a Joseph Smith translation. So it says, "And to the angel was given the key of the bottomless pit." So you could read this, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. And to the angel was given the key to the bottomless pit." Um, and then it continues after that. So that's interesting. There's a footnote for pit. That just takes you to pit or abyss. And then there's a footnote for pit. That takes you to Revelation 21, which says, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand." So now I want to go over to this right here. This is a New Testament student manual, and this covers what we just read. So the third angel. Now, this is according to Bruce R. McConkie from the Millennial Messiah, page 383. He says, "There fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. Could this result from atomic fallout, or pollutions from factories of the world? Or will it be brought to pass by some law of nature beyond our control? So essentially, Bruce R. McConkie doesn't know. Just like the rest of us, he's kind of making a guess, but he doesn't exclude the idea that it's not necessarily something that actually falls from heaven, and then because otherwise he wouldn't say, could it be the factories of the world, or could it be atomic fallout? That would resemble more a star, I guess, if there was like a ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile that was like fired at another nation, and then there was atomic bomb, and then radiation. I mean, so that would fit that imagery more. But he's also thinking about factories of the world. So this is an apostle. This is how he is thinking. So maybe we don't need to think that it's necessarily something falling out of the sky. Um, so, and again, we're going to go into it in just a minute here, talking about Chernobyl, because that was essentially, it was a power plant. It was a nuclear power plant, and it had a meltdown, and then um, it, it poisoned the area basically with radiation. Um, now, an interesting thing here is that the Millennial Messiah, this was published in 1982. Okay, 1982. And the Chernobyl disaster happened just 4 years later in 1986. Um, now Chernobyl wasn't necessarily a factory, but it's kind of along those lines. So I don't know if he had kind of like an inkling or whatever that might be happening, but it's just interesting that those two events, the book being published and then the Chernobyl accident happening, was only 4 years apart, in him saying this first. So it could be. It could be. And we're going to look into Chernobyl more. Um, really quick, though, I want to come down here to the fifth angel. There arose a smoke out of the pit, and there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. Lucifer opens the doors of hell, and every vile influence ascends from its evil depths as it does smoke from a great furnace. So dark is the smoke, and so widespread is the evil, that the sun and the air are darkened. So this is from Bruce R. McConkie, Millennial Messiah, and that's how he's talking about that. Is that it's referencing Lucifer, and we definitely nowadays, you guys, there's definitely a lot of widespread evil, right? Like locusts. Like it's crazy. It's overwhelming just how much evil there is. You can't even watch commercials nowadays without there being evil. In commercials and philosophies of men and just all these things, you can't really even participate in society without this stuff creeping in like an infestation. Um, I feel like that's perfect. It's like locusts just everywhere. They're just everywhere. Um, Okay, now down here, Revelation 8:11, Wormwood. The third angel sounded the trumpet. There fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. John identified this star as wormwood. Wormwood was a plant with an extremely bitter taste. The star named Wormwood that fell from heaven may symbolize the bitterness and awfulness that comes to all who follow the devil. So it almost seems to me like some of this might be figurative rather than literal. It could, and again, it could be both. We know that that happens sometimes. It's with different things within Scripture. It's both literal and figurative, right? For example, um, well, no, I'm not. That'd be a whole other video. Okay, let's go down here to Revelation 9:1. A star fell from heaven and was given the key of the bottomless pit. Revelation 9:1 symbolically describes the final efforts of Satan and his followers prior to the final destructions of the wicked. Satan is depicted as a star fallen from heaven. The Joseph Smith translation clarifies that the key was given not to Satan, but to the angel, who then opened the bottomless pit. That's kind of an important detail, isn't it? This reading emphasizes that God has ultimate control and that Satan has power only as God allows. At the beginning of the millennium, God will bind Satan and his followers. Okay. And then down here, smoke arose out of the bottomless pit. The smoke in Revelation 9, 2, and 3 is reminiscent of the mist of darkness in Lehi's vision of the tree of life. The smoke that emerges from the bottomless pit darkens the sky, similar to how the mist of darkness in Lehi's vision's obscured view of the tree of life. The smoke may allude to all of Satan's false philosophies, temptations, deceptions, and attempts in the last days to destroy righteousness upon the earth. All right, so it would seem that the interpretation of these things, based on the student manual and and quotes from Bruce R. McConkie's Millennial Messiah, um, indicate that some of this could be very much so more on the spiritual side, especially the fifth angel. Um, the third angel, again, it may be both, or it could be simply literal. But again, we have to remember this footnote that takes us to Isaiah 14:12 that talks about Satan falling, Lucifer falling. So, okay, so there's that. Okay, now this is what I found out about the Chernobyl disaster. Um, I just have some key facts here about it. So, uh, a United Nations committee that found that to date fewer than 100 deaths have resulted from the fallout. The most robust studies predict 4,000 fatalities when solely assessing the three most contaminated former Soviet states. So the three countries that were like right there. To about 9,000 to 16,000 fatalities when assessing the whole of Europe. Okay, so 4,000 in the area, and then up to 16,000 in all of Europe. There were a few more things here about it. Let me go down here. Where is it? This is a really long Wikipedia article. Okay, cancer assessments. Estimates of the number of deaths that will eventually result from the accident vary enormously. Disparities reflect both the lack of solid scientific data and the different methodologies used to quantify mortality. Whether the discussion is confined to the specific geographic areas or extends worldwide, and whether the deaths are immediate, short-term, or long-term. In 1994, 31 deaths were directly attributed to the accident, all among the reactor staff and emergency workers. So that's just basically saying that, there's a lot, like, there's not really a clear idea of, because this is still unfolding. Okay, this happened back in the 80s, but it's still unfolding because people have cancer from it. So all they can really do is guess. And even once we have all the data in, I think it's probably hard to say who exactly died because of this, because it's like impossible to trace. But anyway, other disorders. Fred Mettler, a radiation expert at the University of New Mexico, puts the number of worldwide cancer deaths outside the highly contaminated zone at perhaps 5,000 for a total of 9,000 Chernobyl-associated fatal cancers, saying the number is small, representing a few percent relative to the normal spontaneous risk of cancer, but the numbers are large in absolute terms. Long-term radiation deaths. The number of potential deaths arising from the Chernobyl disaster is heavily debated. The World Health Organization's prediction of 4,000 future cancer deaths in surrounding countries is based on the linear no threshold model, or LNT. So they're using the LNT. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, the number of excess cancer deaths worldwide, including all contaminated areas, is approximately 27,000, based on the same LNT, the same model. Okay, now these guys down here, okay, this is Chernobyl, Consequences of the Catastrophe for the People and the Environment, is a 2007 Russian publication that concludes that there were 985,000 premature deaths as a consequence of the radioactivity released. Now, that is a different number. That is, I shouldn't be laughing. That's almost a million. That's almost a million. The results were criticized by M.I. Bolanow, or I guess in English we would say Bolinoff, from the Institute of Radiation Hygiene in St. Petersburg, who described them as biased, drawing from sources that were difficult to independently verify and lacking a proper scientific base. So I highlighted that just because it's unclear, but if they're right, then they're right, and up to like almost 1 million people could have died from this thing. But the point is, it's kind of hard to tell. But the fact of the matter is that it did kill, and it will kill a lot of people. Okay, that's the takeaway. It'll kill a lot of people. We don't know how much, but it'll be a lot. Um, Now, someone had pointed out, and I didn't know this until they did. Well, maybe a long time ago. It kind of rings a bell, but I can't tell if it's a false memory. So anyway, someone said in the comments, this right here. Um, the city's name is the same as one of the Ukrainian names for um, Artemisia vulgaris mugwort, or common wormwood. Okay, wormwood. That's the specific word that's used in the Book of Revelation. So, um, so okay, so let's pretend that that scripture, that angel, is both literal and figurative. And based on what Bruce R. McConkie was speculating, could it be an atomic bomb? Could it be factories? Well, this is almost kind of like a combination between those two. It's um it's a power plant that operates off of nuclear power, and it's called Wormwood. So yeah, now there's going to be some of you that say, no, it's impossible because we're still in the sixth seal. Sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. I have friends that believe that, but um, I don't really adopt that theory, and I don't think that I can't. When it comes to like timelines in the Book of Revelation itself, I don't know if it's like very, very strict. Okay, I feel like all the scriptures are spiritual in nature, primarily. First and foremost, they're spiritual. Now, there are literal components to it, and literal things happen. There is such a thing as miracles and stuff like that. So I'm not going to like discount it, but it's kind of hard to ignore some of this stuff that pops up that seems to match the scriptures that supposedly shouldn't be happening yet, according to some people's theory. So, um, if nothing else, I think it's worth noting that we had this wormwood disaster that surely poisoned people in the waters and in the environment around there, and not just in that area, but all of Europe and even probably possibly beyond. So I'm not going to say either way. I don't have the authority to say, oh, see, it's been fulfilled. We can now check this off the list. That's not how that works. But I'm just going to, keep that in mind. Um, Now let's look at Fukushima. Okay, this was the 2011 disaster after there was that huge tsunami that essentially damaged the nuclear power plant in Fukushima, Japan. And there's not a whole lot that I was able to find on it. It doesn't seem to have been as bad as Chernobyl. This is from the World Health Organization. I know. I'm quoting from them, but here's what they say. From a global health perspective, the health risks directly related to radiation exposure are low in Japan and extremely low in neighboring countries and the rest of the world. And I verified that by looking at other articles and stuff like that, but I'm not going to do like this, all these tabs just to like say the same thing. And this is like kind of like the simplest way that you can put it. So that's why I chose this website. So, I'm not so sure that Fukushima would really factor in to any of these revelations. Um, there was up here the comment that I received was in response to the video I did, I think from the first angel. Let's see. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. They were cast upon the earth. And the third, no, okay. Um, no, okay. And the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. Um, the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. Um, it does. I wasn't able to find anything that suggested that Fukushima was having an impact on sea life. I'm sure it probably did, and I'm not saying that it's wrong either. Maybe Fukushima was the uh, fulfillment of this. I don't know. Let me look at this footnote. I haven't blood symbolism of. Um, yeah. So again, who knows? Is this literal? Is it spiritual? Is it both? Well, it really does seem, if you've seen that other video, I'll put that in the description below. There really is a lot of sea life that's dying over the last few years. There's no end to the articles that you can find. Just do it right now. Get on Google, search any year. Well, probably not any year. I don't know when it all kind of started happening, but ever since 2017, you can find any number of articles where there's just tons and tons of fish and dolphins and whales and everything. Even birds, like birds that are like like nautical birds, not nautical, that live by the sea, seabirds. They're dying too. So okay, so that's what I have for that. Um, excuse me. Now we're going back to General Conference, April 1979. This is a talk by Bruce R. McConkie, and he says, I just wanted to show this because this is interesting. Okay, he says, "Be it remembered that tribulations lie ahead. There will be wars in one nation and kingdom after another until war is poured out upon all nations and 200 million men of war mass their armaments at Armageddon." Okay, so he says that lies ahead. But he says right now, peace has been taken from the earth. The angels of destruction have begun their work. Peace has been taken from the earth. The angels of destruction have begun their work. And their swords shall not be sheathed until the Prince of Peace comes to destroy the wicked and usher in the great millennium. There will be earthquakes and floods and famines. The waves of the sea shall heave themselves upon their bounds, beyond their bounds. That is exactly what happened with Fukushima. It was a massive, massive cinematic tsunami. I remember watching this live, and the images and the video were just stunning. And then we had the massive tsunami in Indonesia. We also had Katrina, right, where the levees broke and the waves of the sea went beyond their bounds, and it flooded the city. We even had Houston recently. Now, it wasn't as much of a disaster. I don't think there were as many deaths, but if you'll remember recently, I think it may have been in 2017, maybe it was in 2016, but there was like it was Hurricane Harvey, I believe, and it flooded Houston and a lot of Texas. So anyway, I feel like that's definitely being fulfilled and has been fulfilled. And according to him right here, it seems that he's of the opinion that these angels are, as of 1979, they are doing the work of destruction right now. So anyway, but he takes that phrase from Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, which is that big second coming section from here, 88:90. "And also cometh the testimony of the voice of thunderings, and the voice of lightnings, and the voice of tempests, and the voice of the waves of the sea heaving themselves beyond their bounds." Okay, so that's what I have for you. That's what I was able to find out. I can't say one way or another whether Chernobyl was a fulfillment of that prophecy, but it seems like a pretty good candidate. Um, you know, with these revelations, how much of it is literal, how much is figurative. when talking about Satan and his influence on the earth, and um, it seems like that's definitely true. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Hope that you learned something new. Um, I think when it comes to the Book of Revelation, and probably other things that have to do with the second coming, it's kind of impossible to say exactly um, what's happening and how it relates to Revelation, but you can get a general sense. And hopefully, you're watching the world around you. You've been watching it for years now, and you realize that things are not the same as they were before. And things are just like getting more and more serious. And since the time of Joseph Smith until now, so many things have happened worldwide: wars, famines, plagues, natural disasters. For this whole, it's not just reserved just for us. There has been plenty of disaster to go around for this whole last dispensation. So it is happening, and it's happening at an ever increasing rate. So, okay, so I'll leave it there. Thank you guys for all those who commented. That led me to doing this video. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, hit the notification bell. Make sure to share this on your social media because it may wake up some people as to how things are being fulfilled and give them more to think about when it comes to the last days. And I'll talk to you guys later.